What's going on, everybody? My name is Justin Gaming. Welcome to special episode number 14 of Gaming at its Core. And as you can tell, today is quite an unusual episode because instead of the regular 4 or 5 people we have with us, we have a grand total of 8 people. And what we're going to be doing today is giving a full rundown on everything about Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. So first, I'm just going to introduce everyone. We'll start with the usual people. So first off, we have Online ZHD.
What's up?
We've got RVGT.
What's up?
We've got Josh McKenna.
What's down?
We've got the return of Blue Danger.
Yo.
And we've also got Meal Kick Media.
Hey.
And we have Robin Gaming, who's back with us.
What's up? What's up, everybody? It's Robin Gaming here. The one and only.
And we also have a new guest with us that I think the majority of the people haven't seen before or heard before. So we've got Crash Gaming. You can introduce yourself.
Hey, how are you?
All right,
Crash
nice.
Gaming.
All right, so basically, of course, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy released this week, and we figured that we're gonna do a special episode where we just get as many people together and talk about our experience playing the game and everything like that, and I guess kind of like compare it with the other Uncharted games and give our overall thoughts on the game. So, I guess what we'll start with is just go through everybody one by one, give us your overall experience playing the game. Some of the things that maybe you could have, I don't know, liked seeing, I don't know. Yeah, just your overall experience, I guess. So, I don't know. Yeah, Robin, I guess you can start then.
Oh, great! Put the pressure on me again. I thought. I thought that I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. It actually kind of exceeded my expectations, I think, because a lot of people went in, of course, just kind of expecting that it would be some type of like Uncharted 4 DLC, and it felt like that gameplay-wise to me because they used the same systems and everything. I still thought that it really set itself apart from, for example, Uncharted 4. It was something completely different, and it's not very long too. It took me like I think 7 hours my first time through. So I have some things to critique about it, mainly story-wise. Like, obviously, a story with Chloe and Nadine is not going to have the same impact as Drake, especially the ending of Drake's story in Uncharted 4. I just think that gameplay-wise, this is one of the most fun Uncharted games to me. This one really returns to, the fun of adventure that kind of, the original trilogy had about it. And, gameplay-wise and pacing and the encounters in it, I really enjoyed myself. And I've beat the game now 4 times. So, that says quite a lot about it, I guess. I just really enjoyed it.
Nice. All right. Josh, how about you?
I think I can agree with Robin on saying it exceeded my expectations as well. I do have some issues with it, sort of to the gameplay. I suppose partly story as well. I think it complements the rest of the franchise, though, or the rest of the games, because it just shows that North Star can continue Uncharted without Drake, and I think Chloe, and not so much Nadine, but Chloe definitely is a good lead character, and I'd be interested in seeing more of that. So, yeah, enjoyed it.
Nice. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I liked it. I don't know. I went in with pretty low expectations. I didn't think it was going to be like amazing, but still having it have the Uncharted name, of course I was going to play it, and playing it in 2 sittings, I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. It's obviously not one of my favorites, but better than what I thought.
All right. Blue, let's hear your opinion, because, you obviously have a very different opinion.
Yeah, Jesus. I didn't go in with any expectations. I didn't really get excited for the game, not because of like its existence or anything, just because I don't want to do that with games anymore. I just don't want to get myself hyped up or not enough hyped. I just want to like remain level-headed going into it. So I can't really say it exceeded my expectations or like disappointed me because I didn't have any in the first place. I thought that it was a good game. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's I don't even think it's a great game. I have a lot of issues with it, mostly in terms of gameplay, a lot in terms of especially its pacing. I hate the pacing. I think its story is very inconsistent. I think it picks up a lot more towards the end. I think its level design was fantastic, I have to say that, but it's a bit of a waste considering that there was no real environmental storytelling. So it was kind of massive areas that were really well designed, they just weren't well filled. I thought overall, I mean, the game looked great. It's a Naughty Dog game. I think we can all expect that by now. But yeah, I think it was just a good game. Just nothing more, nothing less. Just good.
All right. I guess we'll go into it more later, when we go into the individual stuff. But all right. Crash, you can give us your opinion.
All right, so when I was going through The Lost Legacy, I went into it with some lower expectations just because when it was first announced, I knew that it was scheduled originally to be sort of an add-on to Uncharted 4. But as they showed more and more trailers and gameplay, my expectations sort of were rising when I was seeing more. And by the time that they announced that it was going to be a full standalone game, I was fully hyped for this because I'm a huge Uncharted fan. So when I was going through it, I really enjoyed the gameplay. I feel like, they added some new things like the lockpicking and the stealth, which maybe they weren't the most canon to the gameplay experience, but still, it was fun. But the main thing that drew me in was just the fact that it was an Uncharted game. And the story to me, Nathan Drake is the man behind the series. He's the guy that makes it so entertaining to go through. His character's great, but I think that Naughty Dog's storytelling and the way it was written made the game very interesting to play, and the story is really what kept me hooked. And I feel like Chloe and Nadine, just as characters, the way they were written and developed was definitely interesting, and that kept me intrigued through the gameplay as well. Like, they had their, banter sessions just back and forth, talking to each other, running around, kind of like Sam and Nathan did in Uncharted 4. And I was really glad to see that Naughty Dog was still able to keep that alive without Nathan Drake there. So I guess the main concern for me was no Nathan Drake. But after Uncharted 4 story being so great, I will say that this wasn't my favorite Uncharted story, but I still think they did a good job. And overall, I think it was a pretty solid experience. I wouldn't say it was the greatest game in the franchise, but it definitely wasn't the worst either.
All right, nice. Dan, how about you?
I went into it with like mild expectations because, like I said, I didn't want to get too overhyped to the point where like it kind of becomes stupid, where it just can't live up to it. So I went in with mild hype. I didn't really watch most of the last few gameplay demos we got, all the trailers. I didn't even play the game. I think I didn't even beat it until I think it was literally, a day ago. So it was quite late. And I've replayed it since then to try and form some better opinions of it, because when I first beat the game, I don't think I was as positive as I am now. And overall, I think the game was good, really good. And yeah, I agree from a gameplay standpoint, it was probably the weakest area in terms of the pacing. For me, particularly the first half of the game, like it wasn't really until chapter 5 that I really started to get into the game, because the first 4 chapters for me, I just don't know, there was something about them that just there wasn't that level of engagement that I feel like there usually is with a Naughty Dog game. And I don't know whether that's because Drake wasn't there or not, but still, I just didn't really feel, I didn't get the feel out of it in the first 4 chapters. But from 5 onwards, I was just, it slowly started to get a lot better for me as I went through it. I thought it was good how they wrote the story around Chloe and Nadine, especially, like I said, since it's the first Uncharted game not to have Nathan Drake. So you already have that big task on your hands. And I thought they did it really well, especially with writing Nadine, because I wasn't a big fan of her in Uncharted 4. I felt like I was much more of a fan of her character and the development she went through in the story. I thought it was much better than it was in 4, by far for me personally. And yeah, just in general with that, to be honest, those are really the main things that come out with Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. Is that, yeah, it's definitely a lot better than I probably thought it was going to be. I just don't think it's one of the best Uncharted games. I'd probably put it around mid-tier, around about that level, like below Uncharted 4 and Uncharted 2, obviously. But yeah, I still enjoyed it nevertheless. I thought it was, it lived up to my expectations.
All right, nice. Brandon, what about you?
All right. So going to Lost Legacy, I think me and Justin kind of shared the same excitement. Like, we weren't really that excited for it, but we were still, like, obviously on the radar because it's Naughty Dog. But, going to the game, I found the first couple of chapters really good. I liked Western Ghats. I feel like a lot of people didn't like that. It's like one of my favorite parts of the game. I liked it a lot. Way better than Madagascar. A lot of people talk about the second half. I did like the second half a lot of it, but really it didn't pick up to like around chapter 7. I mean, I didn't really like chapter 6 that much with the whole rain APC and the whole elephant thing. But the final 3 chapters were awesome. As Dan said, I kind of like share a similar point of view to him. Like I'm more positive about it going back in and like just enjoying the environments and just taking it in. I did like the level design a lot and the combat compared to 4 and the other ones. I thought it was really well made. Sorry if you can hear like audio in the background. But yeah, I liked it a lot. I don't think it's as good as the previous 4 Uncharted games. I think it's above maybe 1 in terms of like everything, but you know, characters and story. Well, 1 didn't really have that much of a story, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard to rank it for me because, you know, all the Uncharted games besides this one really had like a place in terms of what it tried to do and how it affected the story. And this is kind of like a standalone adventure. So I think, you know, treating it like a standalone adventure, it was great. Yeah, it's great.
All right. So I think for me, like, you know, with what you just said earlier, going into the game, I wasn't extremely excited because for me, like after E3, like once we got the E3 trailer, I didn't watch a single thing because with Uncharted 4, I felt like they showed off too much and I watched like everything for Uncharted 4. So I didn't really watch anything from June all the way until August. And then going into the game, I thought that like it opened off pretty good. The first 2 chapters were, you know, a decent start. I didn't really like chapter 3 and 4. Well, chapter 3 was all right, I guess, but I didn't like chapter 4. It was easily like the lowest point for me in the game. I don't know. I just don't like the open areas. You know, like I just thought it was like way too open, and then like you had to go to like the 3 separate fortresses. And then they also had the extra, like the token things that you can find if you want to. I didn't actually do that, but still, I still thought that, you know, driving around the entire area was way too much. And yeah, I ended up that being like the lowest point in the game for me. In terms of the story, I would say, I mean, the story was, I guess, like considering without Nathan Drake and the characters, it was still decent because they got to develop Chloe more and we got to like learn her backstory kind of. Like, you know, like with her dad and stuff, but they developed Nadine a bit more. I guess as Dan said, I like her more now than I did in Uncharted 4. Asaf, I think he was underutilized. Like, I get that
Definitely.
the game was short, but I feel like he could have still used a bit more screen time because he was only like, other than what was it like? I think he was only in what, like 3 cutscenes or something like
Only
that.
4 scenes in the whole game.
Yeah, okay, so it wasn't that much. So.
Yeah.
Even though the game was short, I feel like they could have expanded on him a bit more. And I feel like his whole motive with like just to destroy the city with the bomb for the Tusk is kind of like, I don't know, it wasn't that special or anything. But yeah, in terms
I was
of,
kind of confused by that.
yeah, I know. At first, I was a little confused with what he was actually trying to do. But
Because it made it seem like he was like this scholar that really wanted to like look out for. I mean, I've always compared Asaf to like a librarian. It seemed like he knew his stuff, and all of a sudden it just seemed like he wanted to wipe out that market,
yeah.
culture of people. It was a cool twist though.
I don't really understand though how I hear a lot of you kind of like complaining about the pacing, but I thought that the pacing is like one of the best things about it in my personal opinion. I enjoyed myself the whole way through.
I just didn't like chapter 3 and 4. Or just 4, I
Yeah,
guess.
that was what killed it
The
for
open
me.
world part to me is definitely the worst part as well. It's just not like Naughty Dog should realize that the linear parts, they should not be embarrassed to, you know, make their games linear. I don't really know why they feel like they need to push open world as well. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not needed. It's unnecessary and those parts are indeed some of the slowest and that, you know, story wise nothing really happens there. So
Yeah,
I agree.
I said in my review, I was like, I hope they don't do something like that in their next game, but I feel like they're just gonna like keep on expanding on that, which I really don't want to see.
Well, they said before they even made the game, like before they even knew the concept, they said that they're already working on their biggest level yet. So it was like a
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because Naughty Dog likes to try new things with their games. That's always been one of the things throughout, you know, history of their studio is they love to try to, you know, go above and beyond what's expected and try new things. But I don't know if open world's the way to go with them. I mean, you already got studios that specialize in that. It's obviously Rockstar making Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption. I think Naughty Dog's thing, they have their niche with these linear-based story games, and I have no problem with them continuing to make immersive games like this. I worry.
It's like every single company is trying to make open world games right now. So, you know, Naughty Dog is like one of the few studios that still does AAA linear games. So I feel like it should just stick to that, and that's totally fine in my opinion. Yeah.
See, I agree with that to a certain degree. I don't agree that they should make them linear. As I think the reason they're pushing this open level design is because it worked in 4. I don't agree that they should have done that open world chapter. I thought that was like one of the worst chapters in this. This might sound a bit existential, but one of the worst chapters in the franchise. That it was so not only horrendously paced, it was just so unnecessary. And because again they removed the environmental storytelling, and there's literally no incentive other than that shitty. What was it? The tokens, and you get a treasure at the end of it, which helps you find more treasures and shit. There's no real incentive to explore that massive area, but I think they should. Something I hate about the original 3 Uncharted is level design. I think the level design is honestly pathetic in the first 3 games because of its so corridor linearity. There's not much room to the kind of paint a way to your next objective in the most obvious way possible. Like, I don't know how often anyone could get lost or confused about where they're going next in a game like Uncharted 1, 2, or 3, whereas in 4, there's like not only branching routes, it's not always obvious where your next objective is, which I see as good level design. I think The Last of Us was the first game to do that. I think there's horrendous level design at the start of The Last of Us with the quarantine zone, but after that the level design is incredible because it's open. It gives the player a bit of like freedom to move about. It's not so much a corridor game like I think the first 3 Uncharted are, and then the level design since The Last of Us has been getting better and better, so I can see why they're pushing this more open linearity, which I prefer, but they don't need to go to the extent of making it open world like with the Western Gas. That's way too much.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, when you're talking about like bad level design, I think that was just for its time. Like, it got better as.
See, I don't like that excuse of giving a game more benefit for its release time. I think a good game is a good game whenever it comes out. If a good game is good now, then it'll be good in 10 years, because it's unfair to compare a past game with a future game. You should only ever do it the other way around, because the future game can learn from the deficits of the previous game, whereas the past game, like Uncharted 2, that's what Naughty Dog made. They didn't know they were making a game that, in my opinion, was worse than Uncharted 4, because they can learn in Uncharted 4. They can't learn from Uncharted 4 and Uncharted 2, you know what I mean? Because it came out before it.
And going back to what you're saying about open world games, I just wanted to say, I think that there's a few ways they can approach doing this. Like you said, Uncharted 1 through 3 were really corridor, just straightforward, linear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge fan of that level design. I think that's a thing of the past. I like the way they did The Last of Us and Uncharted 4 with some degree of openness. I think that is the perfect balance. And I think that too open world is terrible for a story-based game. So you're either going to make a linear-based story, immersive type game like Naughty Dog already has proven themselves to do, or you're going to go for the more gameplay-oriented open world game. You can't combine the two into one game. Like, that's the one thing I didn't like about A Lost Legacy, I would say, is the fact that the open chapter, like, why would they put an open world chapter in a game that's otherwise basically linear?
Yeah.
Like, one or the other, you know?
That's what I kind of agree on. Like, I didn't mind it, but it did kind of feel a little bit odd. Like, it didn't need to be there, and it just felt like it just gave you busy work, or just wasn't needed. Like, they could have made linear levels in that area.
And I feel like they added it. I feel like they kind of added that because this game, right? It's not like a main Uncharted. It's a main Uncharted, but it's not canon to the full plot. So I feel like since it's standalone, but it's smaller, it's like they were able to test the waters almost with people and see if they like open world from Naughty Dog. And I hope that they don't decide to make The Last of Us 2 open world. And since we've seen, the concept art, they had the whole Seattle thing. Just seeing that they're in a big city just scares me. Just thinking that I hope that it's not open world.
I actually haven't thought about that.
I mean, it's going to be fully open world, but they're going to once again do these open world levels in The Last of Us Part 2 as well. I think that's just where they're going, it seems. But
I think it's a buzzword. For me, it feels like a buzzword because, like, The Lost Legacy is a standalone. It's not a numbered Uncharted, so there's going to be lower expectations going into it for the majority of people because it's going to be like its own separate thing. It's not Nathan Drake, so that's kind of like is this going to be any good? And then then Naughty Dog start talking like we've got the biggest level ever. That is buzzwords. That's trying to push the game of like, no, this isn't. You might have low expectations, but we've got the biggest level in any Uncharted game, and then people are like, oh, I might check this out. Then I think that's really the only reason they're going so big. But I don't get it because the nailing level design left, right, and center with these open linear levels they don't need to go any bigger than that because the Lost Legacy is big enough in some of its sections outside the Western Ghats. It doesn't need to be any bigger. It's already perfect in its level design. So I don't know. It's stupid, and I really hope they don't put it into the Last of any like open worldness into the Last of Us Part 2 because that'll just kill the patient.
Like, watch you be able to drive a car in the Last of Us Part 2 as well.
Jesus Christ.
It'll be a horse.
Yeah, it's gonna ruin
If they added cars to The Last of Us Part 2, I wouldn't just be angry for the fact that I don't want to see it open world. I'd be angry because it took us like a ton of hard work just to get a working car in the first Last of Us.
Exactly.
Like, you know how long it took them and how much like hard shit they had to go through just to get that one car working? If you're telling me that there's just going to be cars on the side of the road in The Last of Us 2, which by the way is set 4 years after the first The Last of Us, which means that basically no cars are in any sort of working condition anymore, that would just piss me off so bad.
Dog learns from their own game. So a lot of people said that Uncharted 4 was super similar to The Last of Us, but you got to realize The Last of Us already learned also from the original Uncharted trilogy. Of course, it was still in many ways a similar game, but then it added some stuff on top of that, and it changed some things. And then Uncharted 4 looked at that again, and took everything over that The Last of Us did. So you're going to see now that The Last of Us Part 2 is going to look again at what Uncharted 4 did and The Lost Legacy. And they're going to once again, expand and improve upon that. So I really think that we're going to see very, similar gameplay mechanics as we saw in Uncharted now come back in The Last of Us again. So
Exactly, and that's weird that you bring that up because for me, in The Lost Legacy, I think some of the best bits in the game are where it actually learns from its predecessors. Like that elephant bit, I think, is one of the best moments in the game. That ending set piece where it takes direct inspiration from the train and the car. It's like those moments are the best moments in The Lost Legacy, but where it tries to deviate from that by having like the biggest level of its own is where the game slips up. But I'm fine with games learning from each other. And the Uncharted series is still good. I think The Last of Us is significantly better, but I think as long as they learn from the good things, like I thought it was clever in The Lost Legacy, the running jokes they had, like the dialogue on like pushing crates and shit, like they got rid of that. I thought that was really clever, but I want to see more of that. I don't want to see like learning from the worst bits, like because the Western Ghats, there's no way. I do not believe that area has been well received by the mass audience. It can't have been. I don't understand anyone.
I don't know. I
know it's a buzzword. Go on.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I don't know. I think anyone who's a gamer, because these games generally tend to appeal to people who don't play many games, because the cinematic, visually thrilling experiences, not too mechanically complex, so everyone can jump into it. So there is going to be a bigger audience for these games. So maybe the casual audience will look at that Western Ghats and be like, whoa, this is huge, it's graphically impressive. So maybe that's the response that Naughty Dog will look at, instead of the gamers' response who were like, no, it hit the pacing, and it was, to be honest, unnecessary, as a lot of us are saying. So I think with my worry with The Last of Us Part 2, I'm not worried that it's learning from its predecessors. I'm worried what it's learning from its predecessors, you know what I mean?
I will say that I personally still find the Western Ghats section enjoyable. I didn't have a problem going through it at all. And I just think that, basically they gave you the side objective, which really adds like an hour or two, to the entire experience that you can choose to do or not. If you just do the main parts of the towers, it still takes a little too long, but it's only 45 minutes that we're talking about in total. And they still switch it up well with encounters and some cool puzzles. The one where you jump on these things or whatever with the statues that that slash around and stuff like those. That was still interesting to me, and they did have cutscenes in between too. So I wouldn't say it was terrible or something. I still thought it was enjoyable.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like it's getting ripped apart. Yeah.
Maybe one tower too many. Had it been 2 towers and you could have gotten through that in like half an hour, then that would have been better in my opinion. But I mean, it's cool that the rest is all what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's all you can choose to do it or not. You don't have to do it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's fine with me. I still enjoyed that part. But you also said, Blue Danger, that you thought the pacing in the rest of the game was bad. So I don't really understand that, because I thought the pacing in the rest of the game was great.
No, I hate the pacing because I broke it down, and I don't know how much of the review you watched out. I broke down the pacing on how it felt to me, chapter by chapter, and I've got it written down here. For me, this felt like how it went. It went slow, fast, fast, slow, slow again, fast, slow, and then the last 3 chapters were just a blast to the end. So generally in Uncharted, the way you see it is it'll start with action. Like on Uncharted 1, you got the boats. Uncharted 2, you got the hanging off a train. Uncharted 3, brawl in a bar. Uncharted 4, the boat sequence. And then it'll slow right down and build up to a set piece. That's how Uncharted paces its games. That's why Uncharted's pacing is generally fine. It was a bit off in 4, but for the most part, it's fine in the series.
Yeah.
And then in this game, it's kind of just like slow, fast, slow, fast, and then it's just all over the place. At least that's what I felt.
Yeah, but I feel it's kind of that's like a flaw in the way you do that, because you do it chapter by chapter, but you got to realize that within chapters you also have slow and fast moments. So the fact that you would call one chapter fast or slow, like that's not how I would do it. Because, for example, I remember that you called chapter 2, I think, fast, for example. Even though it starts off with a platforming section with those boxes and stuff, then you make your way into the place from a soft, and then afterwards you get a big chase, kind of escaping that takes a couple of minutes. So in general, the pacing in that chapter alone is already mixed, you know what I mean? So I think that every chapter had plenty of slow and fast moments, and it kept changing between that. So I thought that the pacing was good.
These chapters are like an hour long, so there's no way you could just label it based on like fast or slow. Like each chapter has a pacing within its own.
The criticisms were overall on how the chapter felt. So if it felt majoritively slow or majoritively fast, that's how I based it. What you're saying about the pacing feeling like some bits are slow, some bits are fast, I get that, but to a degree. But the way I did it was, if a chapter felt overall, in that second chapter, that's the one, if I'm not mistaken, the one where you meet, what's his name, Asav. So
didn't even know his name.
Such a good villain. Such a good villain. What's it called? So in that chapter, you have, what is it? There's the platforming section where she pushes in, the floor breaks, and then they have the joke about they're not going to use crates anymore. Then you move through. If I'm not mistaken, there's a melee section before us all, but I'm not entirely sure. I think it's a pretty short
There's
chapter.
one guy.
It's one guy you choke
right,
out.
Yeah, there's a guy you choke out, and then you meet a Saab, there's an intense encounter, and then there's a set piece. That to me feels like it might start off a bit slow, but then that's coming off the heels of chapter 1, which again was a pretty. It's hard to say this. It was how the fuck did I write it? It was like the intro of the game, right, is extremely slow. Yeah. Then in the bit with the little girl, it's the prologue, the little girl you're talking to, you jump on a truck and the title shows up. Then you have the first chapter, which looks like it's straight ripped out The Last of Us in the quarantine zone. You have the bit walking through, there's a bit of a melee encounter where the game tries to introduce stealth, and then you meet Nadine, you have a melee brawl, that's the chapter. Then you have the platforming in chapter 2, and then it's a solve, and then it's the escape set piece. That to me feels quick. That doesn't feel like a slow chapter. Chapter 4 feels like a slow chapter because there's barely anything that happens in it. It's just two puzzles, and you're driving around the place. Chapter 3's over in like 5 minutes. But there's nothing that happens there either. There's two guys at the very end of the chapter, and that's it. The rest of it's more driving and conversation. So it kind of feels like it goes extremely slow, like the slowest intro in the series. Then it's a little bit slow, but it speeds up considerably with the introduction of the stealth mechanic. You could then get introduced to the combat mechanics. Then there's a bit of platforming, which in itself is a little bit intense when it's fucking the walls breaking and you're fucking jumping from thing to thing, and then you get introduced to a solve, and then there's a set piece, and then the third one, it's driving round, so it slows right back down again. Then you have the tiny confrontation with like 2 or 3 guys, and then you're thrown into chapter 4 where it slows right down and nothing happens. And then in chapter 5 it speeds up again because you have the jeeps, the escape from the jeep or whatever you want to call it, the tank, where a Sarge chasing
at the end of the chapter. Yeah, at the end of the chapter.
But I don't exactly understand what the issue is. Like, if you look at Uncharted 4, that game started off really slow too. Of course, it started with a set piece. That's true.
That's like the first 2 minutes.
That was like 2 minutes.
And that's like what every Uncharted game does.
The first 5 chapters are all pretty much slow. So it's like, I mean, I think you were talking in the review about, well, the game hasn't earned its slow moment yet or whatever, but it kind of has because the entire series has already earned that moment. You know what I mean? Like, people know what Uncharted is. So it's fine that they are starting off slow for once.
But that's the point I brought up. I've said that they felt like it was a slow moment because and that logo popping up is exactly what I'm saying. This is Uncharted, don't worry, the pacing's going to be fine, but I didn't see it as fine. I saw it as the reason I criticized that prologue section so much is because it was kind of a writer's way. It was a lazy bit of writing. There was no engagement. It was just normally the reason that they start with action set pieces is generally to introduce a mechanic. or show the player.
Oh, you're talking
agree
about
with
the
that.
tutorial part in your video. That was kind of stupid. People know how to play games.
Because Uncharted 4's prologue was literally just the boat controls for the most part, you know, like
in
like
R2.
what to win out to. Yeah, it's really not really to introduce the mechanics. They use the first
Yeah.
couple to do that.
Yeah.
It's actually more to impress people immediately, get them ready for what's going to be another crazy adventure, get people hyped for it.
They're trying to
Uh,
hook
it's
them.
right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what they didn't do that for once. I can respect that, and I still enjoyed the prologue too. Like I had no issues with it whatsoever.
Oh, I was just gonna say this now, Robin. Your audio is a little bit echo. If you want to reconnect to the voice chat, just if it will work. I don't know. Figured I'd just.
It's
Yeah.
not. Oh no, it's not.
Like,
Is it better like this now?
No,
Yeah.
No, it's not.
it's fine. Just say it. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
Unless you just like
You can
disconnect
understand
from the chat and
Yeah.
reconnect like completely.
But anyways, I was saying all the other Uncharted games started with a big event at the beginning. The first Uncharted, you had the boat shootout. Second Uncharted, you had the hanging from a train sequence. Third Uncharted, the bar fight. Fourth Uncharted, you had the whole boat scene. But like you said, The Lost Legacy starts slow, and I think it's interesting because if you think about the general like plot graph of a good story, right? You have the intro, which it can be slow. It depends on how they want to do the story. So generally, it's kind of slow at the beginning, then things kind of rise up. Then you get to the climax of the story, and then everything kind of falls down and resolves itself. But with I think with Uncharted Lost Legacy, they tried to kind of really follow the general template for a good story, right? Like they started it slow, things built up, things kind of plateaued at the climax of it, and then it kind of resolved toward the end. But like I think aside from missing the giant intro, kind of crazy, not giant because they're short, but aside from missing the really flashy, over the top, crazy intro, I think Uncharted: The Lost Legacy's pacing was okay. I think the best paced Uncharted game is actually Uncharted 2. But overall, I think it was,
Goat.
it was a decent.
Yeah, code indeed.
Uncharted 4 goat.
Nah. I don't know. I like both for their own reasons.
I'd
but
still say Uncharted 2 has better pacing, but there was literally no transitions really in this game, was there?
Oh wait, you know what? I want to say something quickly.
There was one.
I want to say one thing quickly.
From
I want to say one
from
thing
the first
quickly.
PSX demo to the new PSX.
Dan brought this up in his review, which I also noticed like the first time playing it. I thought it was so weird, like that when they like jumped into the river, it just like cut and then they're like into the.
And then all of a
That was
sudden,
that was the only part I was like, oh wait, what the hell? I feel like they're rushing this. Like it just automatically they're in the
so
river.
fun. That felt so fast.
Yeah, because you come out of that set piece and then all of a sudden it cuts, and it goes to this really like slow-paced scene where it's literally just character dialogue between Chloe and Nadine, and that just felt so weird to
What does
me.
it mean that? I just felt like they teleported all of a sudden to a new location on the boat already. But that's only one part. From the rest of that,
Yeah,
was
yeah, that was the only part.
Yeah.
It was almost Uncharted 3 levels of bad. Or maybe not, I don't know.
I was just confused. I was like, wait, what the hell? They're already on a boat?
I just felt like I just thought it was like kind of rushed how they just like cut straight and it was like abrupt.
Yeah.
Reason
I remember thinking about that when I first played it. So
I feel like some people are saying the game felt rushed, but the reason I feel like that might have happened is think about it. Naughty Dog made this game in just over a year. As with the previous Uncharted games, they spent many years between 2011 and Uncharted 4 was 2016. So 5 years between versus just.
they had
over
Last
a
of Us
year.
to it, yeah.
They had The Last of Us in between as well. But that was also during the time where didn't the teams kind of split up at Naughty Dog? Or was that between Uncharted 3 and The Last of Us? Anyways, not important. What I was trying to say was they spent less time making the game, so it's understandable that the game's going to be shorter, and therefore it's harder to fit the pacing into a short story than it is to fit, because you have to get the story resolved within 9 to 10 chapters of gameplay. I'm assuming that's somewhere around what they're shooting for. So you're trying to resolve it, but you got to take into account they got to balance the story with the amount of levels they had to design. So they might have wanted to make the story longer and drag the pacing out a little bit more, make it feel more smooth, but they would have had to design a lot more levels, which would have made the game take a lot longer to make as well.
Well, I agree. They did a great job for being able to work on this for a year.
That's true, but I mean, again, me hating on the game. I don't think it have. I said
Hates
this. I'm sure Robin's gonna counteract this as well.
What exactly were your criticisms? Like, what is everything that you didn't like about it? I want to hear that.
Watch his review. Watch his 14-minute review.
What's it called?
Mine's 12 minutes.
I think the game being developed in here. I think it's the worst Naughty Dog game in the last. When was Uncharted 3? 6 years. 6 years. Right, the last 6 years.
You thought 3 was better?
Which? No,
3.
no. I think this is better than Uncharted 3.
Okay.
No. It came out in 2011. 6 years. Yeah,
So then you would still, but then that means you would still put it in between, because like what I hear most people say is it's like 4 and 2 above Lost Legacy, and then 3 and 1 is under.
It'd probably if it was above, it'd either be on par with 3 or just marginally above it. What's it called? The game being developed in here, I think that's a testament to the studio's quality. That this will probably be their lowest, I think the worst game in the next 5 years, right? Just like I think it's the worst game in the last 6 years. But I don't think that it being developed in a year means the game deserves any more leniency than it's getting. Because as an example, in my review, I brought up Zelda Majora's Mask. Now, the game in front commented saying that Nintendo had a bigger. Don't you dare laugh about that game. Look,
He has to bring up Zelda like a fan.
That game was developed in a year, right? This is like 20 years ago as well. That game was developed in a year, was a successor to the most critically acclaimed game of all time. So there's way more pressure on that team's shoulders than on Naughty Dog's, right? But fucking hell.
Nice voice crack.
That game was developed in a year, and it turned out to be absolutely fantastic because what happened was Nintendo used that time and used so much of Ocarina's DNA, used loads of its mechanics, but used them in new and interesting ways. And the new mechanics that they introduced, they also used in new and interesting ways. In the Lost Legacy, the gameplay just feels like absolutely ripped out of Uncharted 4, and the new implementations are absolutely wasted. So the game being developed in a year, I don't think that's.
Why would you change it though? It wasn't broken.
If it ain't broke,
There's one thing I need to add to that. The one thing I need to say is that the development time for an Uncharted game is far more than a Zelda game. Like, think about like the way they're animating the different scenes in Zelda. Like, I know they make great games. I'm not saying that Zelda's bad. I'm not saying that Nintendo makes bad games, but these giant set pieces, the amount of graphical detail they're doing at Naughty Dog on these massive set pieces, like you look at the different blades of grass in the environment, you look at the motion capture they do for the characters, you have to look at the acting, the story writing, like everything. It takes a lot longer to create a game like that. And again, I like what you say about not giving it leniency for releasing after 1 year. I can agree with you there because, that's their choice to put the game out within a year. But I also think that for the circumstances of the game being released within 1 year, it did a good job. You look at franchises like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty. You've seen what their annual games look like. Compare that to the quality of the Lost Legacy, and that tells you that Naughty Dog is a very much better studio, in my opinion at least, and just based off of that. But again, it's just my opinion. I think they did a good job for time they had. I agree with you on some things, and I don't agree with you on others. But
I think that's a fair point. I appreciate the amount of effort that goes into these games, but the development team is split up into the graphical designers and the gameplay design. My issue is not with the graphics. I think that was fine. It's the part of the development team that worked on the mechanics of the game. That was my issue. In Zelda, it might not seem, or Nintendo games as a whole, it might not seem like a lot of work goes into them, but there's far more systematic complexity in those games than there is in any Uncharted game. There's a lot more mechanical complexity too, and the game Majora is like 3 times, 4 times as long as the Lost Legacy as well, and that game was made in a year, and the story is actually way more ambitious than the one that Lost Legacy tries to tell.
But Zelda's a different type of game than Uncharted.
It's a different type of game, but my point is,
you walk around and you're not doing epic shit.
Yeah, but Uncharted has always been a character-driven story, where it's just a story essentially, where it's like simple story, strong characters.
No, what I'm doing
happen into every single area doing stuff. Zelda doesn't really have that.
Yeah.
Well, Zelda's a massive game, but my thing is, I'm not directly comparing the two games. I'm comparing what two development teams did within a year. on what I'm not directly comparing Zelda and Uncharted because that's
And that's-
completely stupid. But I don't think it's fair to defend the game just because it's got good visuals as if that took up most of the development time when it actually doesn't. If this was a massive graphical leap from Uncharted 4, I'd understand that. The visuals still look fantastic and they have to redesign certain areas and shit like that. But overall, that's not what's taken up. That's not what my issue is with the game. My issue is mostly on the gameplay side and the story side. And
So what
those
do you
are
want
different
changed?
parts of a development team than the graphical designers of the game. And those are the people who I think fucked up in the Lost Legacy. It's not the visuals, but I'm not
Live in a
directly
time
comparing.
anymore. We do not
If
live in a
it's-
time anymore where a game can be made within a year and be very different from another game. It just doesn't happen anymore like that because games nowadays need a lot of development time. I mean, the newest Zelda also took like 5 years to be developed. So that's quite a long time. You know what I mean?
That's
And
true, but
20 years ago was a lot different.
Yeah.
Look at Assassin's Creed, look at Call of Duty. They don't change between game to game. Then.
Yeah, it's always the same thing every year. That's why they failed to innovate because of that short time span. And anybody who thought that the Lost Legacy was going to have these major, like, gameplay innovations, like it was going to completely redefine the series, if you went in with those expectations, I'm sorry, but you were completely wrong because you shouldn't have been expecting that in the first place. Like,
No, but I think
A
Go on.
gameplay formula for a Zelda type of game in a year, I feel like they can change that because they don't have to change every like single aspect. Like you said, they ported over some of the same aspects from the previous one, which I get. Uncharted, The Lost Legacy did that with Uncharted 4, but again, it's just they're different types of games. So the fact that we're comparing them is almost stupid in a sense. The thing I would compare The Lost Legacy to more is bigger AAA games that are centered around being massive set pieces. And the one that, comes to mind the most, just because it's an annual release for the most part, not this time, but Assassin's Creed has been doing that for a long time. And to me, I think the quality in this Legacy is just, it's on a whole different.
I just
But
think
this
it just
was a
comes
game
down
that
to
started out as DLC. This was never a new Uncharted game. Like saying that the game is the worst Naughty Dog game they made in the last 6 years. Like everybody knew that. I mean,
do you count Left Behind too?
The last one, Uncharted 4. That's crazy. Of course, this game was not going to be better than that. Like, the game is fine. The game is great actually for just being what started out as DLC and then became a standalone kind of story that they wanted to add and using the Uncharted 4 mechanics. So they were able to make it within a year. We just don't live in a time anymore where you can make a game within a year and expect it to be completely different because games are so huge now. It's such large projects. Like, we don't live in a time anymore like 20 years ago when a new Zelda game could be made within a year and be so different.
I mean, look at Uncharted 1 to 2 and 3. Like, they made those in, like, maybe, like, less than 2 years, and look how different they are.
Yeah.
But it's really been, like, the past couple of years, it's been a lot. Like, look at, Naughty Dog's not really going to be able to push out as many games as they did on the PS3 because of just the way the PS4 works and everything.
Exactly.
And
That's why they
Uncharted
made this.
2 and 3, you guys said they're the more linear corridor style based games. So making those environments.
It wasn't. It's
compared
not that though. It's not. That's not the reason why it took longer. It's just how it is nowadays. Developed.
Yeah, the development on those, like, think about the development of that, like how much graphical capacity it has to take and how long they have to, they have to optimize these games a ton too to run on console because they're so, like, extremely.
What the hell? Who is that? Oh god.
Anyways, I was saying.
People
like,
wondering, Jaden just joined. Okay, you can go.
it's like you
Oh
guys
my
said, it's
God.
just
This man.
different.
This motherfucker.
Bruh.
Yo, Crash, just talk. You're fine. You're going louder than him anyway.
Just keep talking. It's cool.
Keep talking.
Aside from the guy in the back of the audio, I was saying that these. Damn it! I lost my train of thought because of this. No, okay. Was that games, like you said, they take longer to make nowadays. They have to optimize them more because games have quality and detail with the graphics than they used to. The PS3, I think, was more on par hardware-wise with its time than the PS4 might be, and that's just what I would say. But anyways, like you said, it takes longer, and I think we can all agree that you cannot make a game in a year unless you're talking about Zelda. But unless you can't really make a game in a year and expect it to come out as high quality. Like, I feel like The Lost Legacy started like a project almost like The Last of Us Left Behind, and then it grew into Uncharted 4 and 5.
Yeah, as if they were making it and then they realized, you know what, we could actually make something a little bit bigger out of this. And then they took that ambition,
I mean, it's hard to make like a 3-hour Naughty Dog Uncharted adventure, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's just all about the
Villains
journey and everything.
and-
Yeah.
That was the thing, was The Last of Us Left Behind fit into the plot of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I know, but
That was
Lost
different.
Legacy was
Different
completely
series.
different, its own thing. That's why they weren't able to tell it in like 3
Like, they could
hours.
have made a DLC with Elena making her way to the island, you know, for example, or whatever.
That is
Like, they
true,
could have
yeah.
done that, but they decided to do something standalone, and therefore, yeah, it just needed to be bigger and it needed more time. So,
I actually really like that idea. That sounds pretty cool.
Oh god.
But,
Yeah.
seriously, like, yeah, like you said, it's just for to make a game in a year. I think for what they made, it's awesome that Naughty Dog was able to pull this off. I think, yeah.
Do you think like the size of the level in Lost Legacy was perhaps near the size they wanted to do in Uncharted 4, but they didn't want to make that leap just in case they messed up the pacing, or they didn't want to kind of create something so large that people would hate it because it's not what Uncharted is.
Well,
I
it
think-
was bigger, wasn't it? I thought it was way
Yeah,
bigger.
no, I mean, like Lost Legacy's environment is huge compared to
Yeah, I know.
Uncharted 4.
That's the thing. I feel like they were more willing to take risks with the Lost Legacy just because they knew
Yeah.
that it's not as there's not as much riding on the Lost Legacy. Like Uncharted as like a whole series 1 through 4 has already gone out with like a bang. Uncharted 4, like at least they didn't drag it on, just like kill the franchise off and let it go out while it's like crippling and like dying of terrible games. Like at least they ended this with dignity, and Uncharted series got to go out on that note. But with the Lost Legacy, it's like, you know, this is kind of just a side of Uncharted 4. It's just an extra, you know, thing that we're saying we're kind of adding it on, but we're also going to kind of detach it a little bit from the main game. And I feel like that because of that, they were able to take more risks with it and not really have to worry, because people already love Uncharted. Like no matter what they did with the Lost Legacy, people are still going to respect Uncharted as being a great friend. So I think it's kind of cool to see that they were able to take some risks
I feel
with
like
that.
with the Lost Legacy, what
Oh.
they did,
I can't hear you, Jaden. Jaden, we can't hear you.
Jeez, this man just
you
shows
have
up.
to turn your mic up, Jaden. It's very low.
No, he was playing a video of
I
his.
feel like what they did with the Lost
Oh, wait, no.
Oh, really?
I don't know. It sounded like
I
it
was
was.
gonna say,
He just records all his thoughts. He's just gonna play them.
Not anymore. This shit's crazy.
Yep. Should we just ignore him throughout the whole thing? Just ignore him throughout the entire thing. Just piss him off.
Just mute his volume. Just mute him.
Is my mic still echoing, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very crackly on my end.
Yeah. I was wondering if we're going to move on to any other topics, because if we end up...
Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk
the
about
whole-
like
Right,
about
yeah,
ranking
we're
and stuff.
talking
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
solid, like,
Yeah, because if we just spend the whole 2 hours just talking about, oh, it was made within
Pacing
one...
and-
Yeah, I'm pretty sure people are just going to get fucking bored, aren't they?
I honestly think we might want to edit that down just a little bit.
Nah, it's fine. It's fine.
Nah, it's
You just
fine.
said-
It's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, these
Yeah.
are always supposed to be like structure, not structured.
Just go with the
Commentaries,
flow.
like,
Just go with the
yeah.
flow.
I'm so
I think we
not
should
used to just going with the flow, because all the videos I do, I like write a script for them, except for the walkthroughs.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you guys want to go into ranking the Uncharted games, like how you
Sure,
liked-
sure.
I want to talk about Solve the greatest villain.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too.
Should we like
Characters and stuff.
yeah,
go
because-
by like
because they
character
did
by
it
character?
okay.
Maybe?
Oh, Jaden, why don't you give us your opinion? Because you love
Oh, yeah.
Asaf so much and you think he was so well
Solve
developed.
is the greatest villain ever.
It's like
isn't he?
Sancho West.
Jaden, what do you
Turn your volume up too.
And
Turn
let
the
yeah,
volume up.
yeah, I think everyone needs to shut up so Jaden can talk, so we can actually hear him.
guys?
All right, Jaden, go ahead.
With the Sov, right?
Yep.
Or do you want to know my opinion regarding a Sov, or?
Or since you just joined joined us, give
Talk
us a
about the
quick
general-
opinion, your
yeah,
quick
about the
opinion
game.
about the game.
Yeah, so with Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, I feel like all of the problems that Uncharted 4 suffered from was almost like redeemed with The Lost Legacy, right? We had more character development with Nadine, although I expected a ton more.
Bullshit.
We got a decent amount of good set pieces, in my opinion.
Let him talk. Jesus Christ.
And Asav was a fucking amazing villain, in my opinion.
Bullshit.
Oh,
Come
wow.
on,
He said he
come
was
on.
better.
Nah,
He said he was
he was
better than
okay.
Lazar.
He was okay.
No, no. Do you want to know the
Zoran
worst bit?
Lazarevic is the best villain from all of Uncharted. Him and Flynn.
Oh no, I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all. I'm gonna get
Well, no, I mean, it still is Rafe better, but.
Wow.
Rafe is a million miles better than Lazar, in my opinion. In Lazar,
Marlo.
Christian Flynn. Rafe
The
Lazarevic.
reason why I liked
Yeah.
Asav though was because
In Eddie Rogers.
Marlo and Andy
he
Roger.
was in search. He was in search of a tusk, right? That was a part of his culture, But
Yeah.
because he
Sculptor.
because he was a part of Civil War, right? Because he was a warlord, he decided just like out of nowhere to sell that tusk and make a bomb in order to win a war. So that just shows how he's so patriotic about this country and that he was willing to.
You know who else is patriotic? You know who else is patriotic?
Where this is going.
No. Listen, to go through all that trouble in search of some damn tusk and just give it all away for some pathetic bomb that would kill thousands of people so we can tell this point. And in my opinion, I think that was brilliantly done. And obviously in my review, I say so. So, yeah.
Nah.
Oh, we haven't seen your review yet.
He was so good up until that moment.
Guy makes him the best villain.
Yeah.
I like how Chloe in Uncharted 2 says, "Don't stick out your neck for other people," and then at the end, she's doing that for the people of the market. Just kind of
Oh yeah, you know what I was thinking? It's like Nate's like you should play the hero more often.
Well,
She's like, nah.
Like, remember when Nate just didn't want Lazarevich to get the sap? She's like, the world doesn't care. Don't stick out your head for them.
Yeah.
They doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
The thing with the sub I found was that generally with the scenes he was in, he wasn't that bad. But it was for me that moment when he traded the tusk for the bomb, and then for me, I don't know what it was. I know Jaden made the point then about the religious aspect of it. But it still felt like to me that it just reverted him back completely to generic villain who wants to blow up people for the sakes of being purely crazy. And that was the thing. Sure, there might have been some religious aspect to it, but that was completely thrown away by the fact that at the end of the day, his aim was to blow up people and essentially just want power. The exact same as what Lazarevich wanted.
It comes out of absolutely nowhere. It's just 1 minute he goes all that way.
Yeah, I was talking to Josh about that. I have the same.
It goes all that way for the tusk for some religious power. He's got the blood of the old kings, as he says at the end of the game. Since when was that the motivation? I mean, for the whole game, it's been just to get that tusk, and then boom, left wing. He wants a bomb now. He's a terrorist. What the fuck?
And then after that, he just said, I could buy another one. So I'm like, why didn't you just buy this in the first place? Why'd you go all out for the tusk just to freaking sell it?
Here's what I gotta say. If this guy would have spent like as much effort as he would have trying to find this damn tusk, couldn't he have just put that effort into building the bomb?
Building a bomb?
Yeah.
You kind of felt stupid. And he said he could just buy one anyway, too.
This tusk, yeah. Like, why did he need the tusk to get the bomb? Like, the tusk is worth so much more. He could have just sold the tusk and then bought a bomb and had billions left over.
Well, let's be honest. The reason for it was to make you go into training again. That's pretty much it.
I was going to say, was it?
And also for the Orca cameo.
From the tusk in order to make the second bomb or something. That's probably.
Yeah, but you're assuming that's what he wants.
That's not in the game. No, exactly. That's not in the game. So regardless if that would have been the case, it's not there. So we don't know that.
Yeah.
I still feel like that tusk would have been worth more than 2 bombs.
We know that he doesn't have enough money to make a bomb to begin with. So
but he could have put effort into getting the money.
But he hired Sean.
Yeah. If he has enough money to go through all that stress, all that research, and all the effort that he has,
he had a private army hunting you down. Like,
see, that's the thing I'm confused about.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
And then
is it that Orca wanted the money, or did he want the tusk? Was it like a trade deal, or was it he wanted money? Because if it was money, why didn't Assad clearly seems wealthy? Surely to gods, he'd have enough money, or was it just for the tusk?
Never was explained.
Was it like a trade deal between Orca and Assad?
Well, you know, if his goal was just to destroy the city, why did he even need a bomb? He had a goddamn private army. He could just have
just gone in there, just swarmed the whole place and taken it by force.
Sent them, yeah,
that's kind of stupid.
This man's motives. I don't understand.
It makes no sense how he guys research those things for months when he could just buy it or something. I don't know. Like, why the tusk? Like, why go after the tusk?
Like, he was smart in, you know, the fact that he knew about the tusk and all the history and stuff, but his common sense is by far the dumbest of any villain I've seen. Like, his intelligence level.
And he's terrible at what he does. He's terrible at what he does because earlier in the game, he's so intent on killing Chloe and Nadine, where he holds Nadine, he holds a gun up to Chloe. He's about to shoot her. At the first interaction with them, he tells us men to shoot them, and then at the end of the game, he handcuffs them and walks them in so that he can drown them. When he could have just shot them.
But this is typical video game, you know.
But that's true. It's just like typical stuff. Just like Lazarevich, how he left Lynn to do it when he could do it.
Things I pay attention to anymore.
That's typical.
But in
That's
that
obvious.
final room, was that puzzle in the final room? Do you think he wanted someone else to figure it out because he couldn't?
He could have
or-
had one of his henchmen do it. He could have done that. He didn't give a shit. I don't think he gives a shit about any of his henchmen.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
I
they
don't- I've
could've
never
just
been
been
to a rave
there
till
all
like
day.
Also, like, freaking. Remember at the freaking Scotland part when Nadine finds Sam and Nate, and Rafe's like, "Don't kill them. Let me get there first." It's just like it's just
No.
cliche stuff. They could just shoot him all the time, but it just does it.
And
for
there was a
dramatic-
sex backstory with Nadine and Thingy as well.
What?
I forgot that.
The
Yeah,
what?
It's
When-
implied in
when-
the game that they were in a relationship, basically.
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
But
fucked.
like, anyways, Asav's intelligence level for.
Wait, who are you
finding
talking
treasures- I'm talking. We were talking about Nadine and Rafe for a second there, but.
I miss something?
Level,
Yeah, you did.
where were
What happened? Sorry, what? Can you?
So basically, yeah,
Here's doing casually having a stroke.
Do we like pass out or something?
I already didn't get exactly why it seemed that Nadine was almost in a relationship with Rafe in the beginning there in Scotland, and now it turns out that's kind of her thing. She likes to do that with the people she works together with, it seemed, because she had a thing
Sloth.
going on with Asav.
the
That's true.
slowest character in Uncharted games is slow. It's freaking Nadine.
Nah,
The true villain. Of
I
the
don't make more sense.
Yeah.
But like, no.
Yeah, at least you didn't hook up with Chloe just for that SJW, right?
Oh my god.
Oh well, this video is gonna get a. We can't put ads on it
You
now.
just
Not demonetized.
Oh,
we don't even have these videos
Jaden's
monetized.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
For the patron.
Not suitable for all advertisers. But no, like seriously,
not
Asav
suitable for
had,
monetization.
as a villain to me, he was very smart in terms of finding the tusk, but his intelligence level for being a villain in general was on par with that of a
No,
10-year-old.
no.
I'm gonna find the tusk just so I can get a bomb,
Very
even though
good
I could.
crafting the art.
Dude, Jaden, turn off your mic. Like, it's
Turn
gonna
up
be
your
hard to
mic.
overtalk
Turn
people
up your
if the mic's that
mic,
low.
please. I want to hear this.
I turned you up to
bullshit.
200% and I still can't
It's
hear you.
so low. Like, yeah, I know.
Hold on.
I thought Dan's was bad. Jeez.
I turned it up
Yeah.
to 200%. I still can't hear
Well,
anything.
if I can do anything shit, Jaden can do it shitter. That's the moral.
So you're saying that Jaden could be shitter at FIFA?
You guys,
Exactly.
I wanted to say one thing on the topic of characters. You guys said the whole thing about how like the SJW thing or whatever, but like I feel like they starred as the main character in this game because they could have. We've all thought it. They could have easily starred Sam and Sully, right?
Yeah.
But I think the reason they did this is they wanted to appeal to the female demographic. Because think about it.
You really think so?
Sony.
You really think they did that
I
though?
think it could be
I feel like
I think
using
that's a
Nadine
part of
as a
it.
partner is kind of pushes that.
It's not even that.
Yeah,
They
I
did
didn't mind
the
it.
dialogue
They
in the
didn't
car.
push it,
In
it was
the
fine.
Have a reason.
I
If they
really
would've
didn't
just
mind
like,
it,
like,
honestly.
behind or something that was not needed, then I would have a problem. But I mean,
I'll just
it-
raise
it
my
was fine.
voice, but I feel like the writers for Naughty, the people who wrote Asav did a very interesting job crafting his story arc. I feel like you guys are kind of not appreciating the way they crafted the villain because you think, oh, it's just a generic. He wants to blow up people, but
He
they
does
added the element of war to it.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's what he wants to do, but it's not generic. It's not. There's purpose and reason for why he wanted to do it.
Because
right?
he's trying
It's
to
not,
get
it's not because I just want power.
Because he's an idealistic psychopath,
wanted-
basically.
That's what all leaders
No, no,
want
no,
is
no, he
power. That's
wanted
what all
to
these guys
restore-
want is power.
He wanted, yeah, but he wanted to.
Well, it was for his
restore-
culture. I know what
He
he's
wanted to
talking
restore the old ways of the Husala kings, right?
By
And the
fucking
only
blowing
way
up the city. He wanted to blow up people.
was
Most people do real life, though.
but he wanted to win the war, so that he can restore those ways.
about. I know what he's
Right?
talking about. They're kind of setting it up for the whole game with the bombings in the city and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Had that
still.
private army
That's
kind of
throughout the
reset
entire
ways
story,
of the
which is
people
why I
if
think
they
it was
really wanted
brilliant.
to.
The way they crafted him, I personally disagree with everyone who doesn't like Asav because I
No,
personally.
we're not saying he's
I think
bad.
you don't
He's
mind
not.
much.
I didn't say he was awful. He's
Yeah,
better
yeah.
than Marlowe. He's better than Talbot by far.
Oh, by
Like,
far.
he's not the worst. He's just the most underdeveloped and has the most
Yeah.
stupidest twist at the end.
Absolutely no substance. So it goes from being nothing to just
A little bit of
Still.
something.
it's something, but it's oddly like holy shit, she became a
I didn't
far
understand the
better
hate
character.
of Nadine in Uncharted 4. Like, to me, Nadine was a decent character, but, like, she just wasn't in it at all much. Like,
Yeah,
so
no,
it was hard
I
to
don't
like her at
think
all,
she
but
was
she wasn't
it.
necessarily a bad character. I don't understand why she was bad in Uncharted 4.
I think she's wasting this because she you get to see more of her, and she was just as uninteresting as she was in Uncharted 4, which says to me she's not a good character.
I disagree with that.
I thought she was not uninteresting in Uncharted 4.
Yeah, no, I don't think she was uninteresting in any of the games. Honestly, I feel like in Uncharted 4, she was slightly uninteresting, but for the Lost Legacy, I think she was way more because we understood about the company a little bit more, and we understood now. And then, like you said, she at the end of the game, she felt like giving the treasure hunting business a go again. So it really shows that she's a little bit more, like you said, happier and there is that change between her character in Uncharted 4 into the Lost Legacy. I don't know why everyone hates her or just doesn't think thinks she's uninteresting. I think she was pretty cool.
I don't think it's hate necessarily. It's not that she's
way better than Rafe, I'd say.
Nah, what?
No.
Cross the
I
line.
didn't like Rafe.
That's a feminist talk.
I don't know how you can say that Nadine Ross is better.
She was
Yeah,
she
I
was
just
barely
don't like Rafe
explored
too.
in Uncharted 4, dude.
I want to ask Jaden, what game did you play? Are you sure you played Uncharted 4? Are you
That's
sure
why
you
the
played
last-
it?
No,
He played it once.
That's why.
Oh yeah, true. He's playing GTA 5.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, okay. The remarks aren't gonna change my opinion.
Do
With the Lost Legacy, yeah, but that's why Justin, again, I don't know if you were here earlier. I was saying how
I
the
went out
Lost
for a bit.
Legacy gave Naughty Dog the chance to improve upon the mistakes that they made in Uncharted 4. And while it wasn't perfect with Nadine, we still got more background on her character.
We
Now,
got a
with
little
Rafe,
bit.
I just felt
I don't think it was really. Was it too?
I feel like
It
we
wasn't
got
really
there for-
background, was it? It wasn't really background. It was just
There
more
was-
like what
They
happened
touched
within
on
that
it when
within
they
the
said
time of
about-
Uncharted 4 and.
When Chloe says like
No, but we got-
so much money wasted on.
Yeah, but we got how her father was this Shoreline, why she cares so much about Shoreline and obtaining the tusk is because she wants to bring it back from what happened in Uncharted 4 because it was it's a family business. So in that regard, that is a background.
Didn't we know that already?
None
I'm
of
pretty
that
sure we
was-
knew that already. It was
Yeah,
family
I knew that.
family
It was
company.
Uncharted 4.
Yeah, well, guys, we've talked a ton about this, but like overall, out of 10, what would you give it? And honestly, like, what did you just think of Lost Legacy? Overall,
Solid 9. I was really I played it when I was sick. So
So it lowered your experience. So it lowered your experience.
no,
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that I played it when I was a little moody. So I feel like, and although I really enjoyed it, I feel like I think I would have enjoyed it a lot better if I wasn't sick. But all of the surprises that I got, aside from cough cough Ryan accidentally spoiling it. No, I'm joking. I really liked the Lost Legacy. I think I would give it like just around like an 8.99, just a solid 9. Like 8 for amazing, like I say in my review. So yeah.
how about you, Justin? What did you think?
Well, in my review I gave it a 9. So overall, it's still overall it was pretty good. I just had a few minor issues,
Ryan,
few
what do
bits
you
of
give
things
it?
with the story, but yeah.
Yeah, I give it an 8. I think it's better than what I expected, but when comparing it to like a full, I don't know. I feel like there's kind of two expectations that you can have with this game. Is like you can have the expectation of this being like a standalone DLC, or you can have the expectation of this being a new Uncharted game. And I guess my expectation fell somewhere in the middle of that, just because of Naughty Dog's marketing and sort of just my prior knowledge of what the development of this game has been. So I think I'll go with an 8 on that.
What it was somewhere in between. How about you, Blue? What did you think of it?
Yeah, it's just I give it a 7. I think it's a much better game than Uncharted 1. I think it's probably
So what would you give Uncharted 1?
fucking 6. I think it's a mediocre game. And I stand by that, but I'm not going to sit an hour and explain it. I think it's probably on par, maybe a little bit better than 3. I think it's not as good as 2, and I don't think it's anywhere near 4. I don't think any of the games come close to The Last of Us, but that's a different story.
Damn, son.
So what do you guys think about the set pieces? 'Cause
Last
that
of Us is
helicopter
overrated.
was so disappointing based on that photo that was on Twitter of them like hanging off above the ocean.
Yeah, the helicopter thing just kind of.
Wait, sorry,
just
what'd you
happened.
say? The
It's a
helicopter
boss
thing?
fight,
You know
really.
that whole photo of them hanging off the edge of the helicopter, like way high up in the air.
Bro, I told you. I was like, I told you when I played that it was so underwhelming. I was like, oh,
It,
that's
it
it.
was underwhelming,
I
and they were just
wasn't-
like, let's stick a
no,
train
honestly,
in there,
I
and
wasn't
everyone was
underwhelmed
happy.
at all. I wasn't expect. I guess I don't know what I was expecting, but like I feel like it was. If I replay it, I probably will say it's underwhelming, but I enjoyed it regardless. 'Cause
You literally
again,
attach
the
a
whole thing
rope
with
and you
work,
climb up, and
know,
that's it. It's literally
it's
what
so
you do
sick.
in a standard area. You
Yeah,
just throw up
like
your
the
rope and climb
concept
up. That's
art.
it.
Yeah.
Actual.
That concept art photo made them look like they were like hundreds of feet in the air.
Freaking plane or like something way high up in the air.
They were like above
Yeah,
mountains and
I was
stuff.
more excited to see what Orca would have said to Nadine, like that whole conversation. That whole,
Bro, we're talking about set pieces.
Bro.
yeah, I know, but and I'm talking about the fucking set piece. I'm saying that I enjoyed it. If I were to replay it, I probably would think it's underwhelming, and I was more excited to see the ending, the payoff of that set piece, like Sancho mentions in his review. So
Sucking Sancho's dick.
in a podcast, really. Why do you?
Make sure to check out Sancho West on YouTube.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's a great YouTuber, as well as Robin Gaming
Thank
and
you.
the Starks.
Absolutely.
Nope.
What's the stocks?
Not that last one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jaden's runs.
Like,
James
that
cheeky memes.
helicopter scene. Like, that
No, I
piece is
agree,
there.
though.
They
Like,
glorify
I would
it
understand why
compared to
you would
what
want
actually
it
is.
more, though.
Like,
Yeah, that is pretty underwhelming, though.
Yeah.
But I never thought anything of it because I was ill. So
Hey guys, just really quickly, I gotta get out of here, sadly.
All right.
All right.
no, you don't. No, you don't.
Thank you for inviting me.
Shut up,
Yeah,
Jaden.
Yeah, thanks
I'm
for
gonna
joining us.
be leaving here shortly as well. But
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. I think we got everything.
Yeah.
It's been
for
great.
having
Just
me
close it
very
out here.
much.
I need to talk about. I need to talk about my ranking, people. How dare you skip me?
No.
That's
All right, we'll see you later, Robin.
Wrap it up. Yeah, have a
See you,
good day,
Robin.
Robin.
See you, Robin.
See ya.
See you, Robin. I need to talk about. I want to talk about my score quickly. I just want to get it out of the way
Leave
with.
it.
Yeah,
what
me
I've done
too.
with. Yeah, I'm just gonna say, probably an 8.5. If I was reviewing it after the initial playthrough, I probably would have given it a 9. But upon replaying it, I'd probably say an 8.5. Like I said, it can still change because it's quite recent. I haven't played it as much as the other games, so my opinion could change on it. But yeah, right now an 8.5. Only real problems was some of the gameplay elements in certain chapters just felt a bit meh, just in the pacing of it. I felt Asav could have been a little bit more developed and had a bit more time in the game. I don't want to talk about Jaden. You were late to the podcast. You missed out.
Hey, I wasn't late. I was right on time. I said.
No, you're not. You're not. How many times did we say 4 p.m.? Yes.
And welcome, guys, to the second week. Jaden's runs. We're gonna talk about.
I gave my own. I gave my own time, ladies. I gave my own time. I said
You live in your own
4:40
universe.
the earliest and 5:40 the latest.
Yeah, if we started at
Fuck yeah.
Listen, it's not like you guys were waiting an hour for me. You guys started the podcast.
Yeah,
already.
because we're
I
not
had
gonna wait
joined.
an hour
Okay,
for
cool, I
you.
joined late. I was gonna ask, what about the pacing? Did you not enjoy? Because I felt like the pacing was pretty,
don't talk
pretty
about
cool.
that.
It was the Western Ghats that.
Jaden.
But that's because I went for the tokens, which.
Jaden, if that's the if you want the answer to that question, it's simply chapter 3 and 4. Those were the chapters that for me, like, and also the cut
Well, it's
from
like the
chapter
entire
2 to 3 felt
construction.
awkward as well. It was just like from that cut from chapter 2 onwards until the end of chapter 4 was really that period of the game where it's like, I'm still playing it because it's Uncharted, and I know hopefully it will get better, but at this point it's like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling that, like, oh man, this is so addictive. This is really fun to play. I'm really loving the characters. Like you usually have in an Uncharted game. I didn't get those feelings during those 2 chapters. And because those chapters take up quite a large bulk of the game, that was for me the problem with it. Like, the first 2 chapters aren't that bad. Maybe they could be better in certain areas, but they weren't too bad. It was just mainly chapter 3 and 4. Those were my problems with the game. But from there onwards, for me, I felt like it slowly went uphill. So
Yeah, that's fair.
that's what I'd say about it.
Mhm.
I think we
Yeah,
got to thank myself.
All right, I'll say my thoughts really quickly. Overall, I think you could still rank up with the other Uncharted games. Like, it's in the middle for me. As Dan said, in terms of pacing, the only areas where I really I wasn't having as much enjoyment was chapter 3 and 4. because I felt like you just just exploring in those areas took up a bit too much time and it kind of dragged on a bit. But other than that, yeah, after like once you get to chapter 5, from there it really starts to pick up. More set pieces after that, because in the first half there's only like 2 set pieces, as I mentioned in my
Yeah,
review.
the set piece is disappointing.
But yeah, once you reach like chapter 5, from there it really picks up. Overall story and adventure is like the adventure. Yeah, I also mentioned this in my review. The adventure itself wasn't as enjoying, or like it was. I didn't like it as much.
Because they're all in like one place, really.
Well, Uncharted 1 is like that too, though. But I just felt like because you were like just chasing down a tusk, it wasn't as cool.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the tusk
overall,
was worth
it was
a lot of money.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean in the sense of like the adventure. Because like in Uncharted 4, you're going after Henry Avery, and the story of Henry Avery and Libertalia itself is really interesting.
No, trust. I don't. The Hindu history is incredibly way more sophisticated than Henry Avery's history.
That's not what I was saying. That's not what I'm saying, though. That's not what I'm saying. It wasn't as interesting. It really wasn't. Did you really find the Parashurama and Ganesh, all this stuff, like more interesting than the tale of
Yeah, it's way more interesting
Libertalia?
in Uncharted 4. Like one of my favorite scenes from Uncharted 4 is when you get to that diner table and you see all of them dead.
Yeah, that was
Henry
like
Avery.
really
That's,
interesting.
yeah, it feels like you learn 2 stories at once. Or like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You
You
learn
have the
about
present day
what happened.
story,
Stories colliding,
and then you have the story of the
the
pirates.
story of
It was
Nate
only
and Sam's relationship, the whole
Justin,
thing
it was
about
the
Henry.
And then
comparison.
environmental storytelling.
It was the comparison between a DLC and the first Uncharted game the first game of the big French series. That's what kind of hit the spot of me asking that question. That was the only reason why, or saying what I said. That was the only reason why I said that, was because you were comparing it to Uncharted 1.
Yeah, well, even then, it's like Francis Drake and
But
the story of El Dorado,
Yeah.
how he faked his death. That's another story on itself as well. And then you learn that he was trying to actually stop it from leaving the island, and that's really like this cool plot twist that they added.
yeah.
So I don't know.
This
What
wasn't that. It was
what set
cool
pieces
still. It was
were
still
in the
good.
first 2 chapters? Though?
This wasn't as good.
There's only the rooftop chase.
The
That's not a
rooftop
set.
chase,
That's
that's it.
that's like a
Yeah, well, it's kind of like a semi-set
climb-
piece.
It's like a semi-set piece. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
like,
really,
yeah,
all they're doing is
semi-
shooting at you as you're running.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So first half didn't really have
The
any,
elevator
like
one
too
was
many.
cool. The one where you're going up the elevator. Oh yeah,
It
real
feels
quick
like-
talk about the puzzles. They had a lot of cool puzzles, like the
The
axe guy.
puzzles are the best in this.
I had so much-
Puzzles were cool.
The shadow puzzles honestly might be my favorite one in the whole entire series.
Oh, I think the axe one was.
I like the
best
axe one. Wait, you mean like the one where you have to jump on the platforms and
yeah,
shit?
yeah.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, that
Dude,
was
I was
sick.
so
I like that.
surprised when playing.
I like the shadow ones the most. The one where
I
you
was
can
really-
That annoyed me. That really annoyed me.
The
It was
shadow
the
ones-
actually-
Shadow
that's
one was
that
kind of
annoyed
annoying for me at first because I kept like trying to move it, and then
No,
like
but it
you
made
can't
sense.
stop
I
it in
got
the
down
middle.
intuitively. It
I know
was
it,
good.
yeah, but
I
it
like
was
that
really
one.
fun
That's
though.
my
It
favorite
was
I
puzzle.
really fun.
understood it, but like it was. I took me a couple of tries to really.
I love the shadow
really
one. That's like
understand.
my favorite. The axe one was also really good though. They had a really cool. They had a lot of good
Yeah, the
puzzles, and I'm
axe
glad you don't
one-
have to look at your notebook. You just it's intuitive.
Yeah, you know
That's, like,
what?
the
That's
best
the
part
thing.
about it.
It's like with these puzzles, there was never a puzzle where you had to like look in your journal or something. Like you know, on
Yeah,
Uncharted
look
2, you have to
down,
like
look
look
up,
in your
look down, look
journal
up.
and like turn over those giant cylinder things.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. that
With
was
here,
cool.
it's like you actually have to use your common knowledge. You know?
Yeah, you just gotta use everything that's in front of you. You don't have to have something written down. It was nice.
Was anyone else surprised that the axe puzzle didn't kill you when you like missed
Yeah,
it?
you know, the
when I
first
was-
time it
I
hit
was
me,
so
I'm like,
sad. I was
oh,
like,
wouldn't you be
no,
dead?
never mind.
I'm like, oh, wouldn't you
I'm
die
glad
from
it
that?
didn't kill you though, because then loading screens
yeah.
would be so annoying.
Yeah. What do you guys think about
What
the
else?
elephant scene?
I
That
actually
was
got
cool.
that part.
What did we
You know,
learn, or
I
what
wasn't
did
sure because I kind of had it spoiled for me.
Oh, I got it spoiled for me too because it was on their iPhone
I
sticker
didn't.
thing.
I didn't see the
Like,
whole
now they
thing.
have the
I
iPhone
saw
sticker
that.
thing.
I saw that.
The
Stickers.
iPhone
I saw elephants. I was like,
sticker.
well, they confirm elephants are in the game.
I saw 1 second
Oh,
of
'cause
Chloe
I
and
saw
Nadine writing
those.
something, but I wasn't sure what they were
sense.
writing. And then like when I
That
saw the
makes
elephant, I'm
sense.
like, oh, yep, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that
didn't
scene
think
was
about
cool,
that.
but like it kind of just feels like. I mean, like I get why it's done, but it just feels like again like the giraffe scene.
Yeah, that's what I was
And it's
saying.
like-
I
think
I
I
thought
do
about
like
the
it.
last ones when I played it.
It was cool, but it just felt weird. Like it didn't.
I,
it was
I like
cool,
how it
though.
ended, and like it felt like a nice part, but it just feels kind of like you've just had this big argument with Nadine, and everything's gone tits up, and then suddenly it's like, oh, an elephant, we're friends again, kind of thing, and it's like I get why it's done, but there's so much back and forth with Nadine and the character that it kind of pisses me off a bit, like a little.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like about Nadine is how she's so impulsive and has all these tempered, like she's so, like she has like mood swings. I don't understand why she was so mad that she was working with Sam to begin with. It was Chloe's gig, like she said in the game. Like it was so confused. Like that element of Nadine I don't like. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why they write her up like that? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I like her.
The thing I don't get about Nadine is where did her superpowers go from the Uncharted 4?
I know.
I thought that as well. Why the hell did all the combat training go down the shit?
Like, she's a badass. She's taking out.
I saw new
Sam,
martial arts or some shit.
I saw freaking just wrecks her. She's on the ground for like 30 seconds, not moving at all.
Asav was
It's
Asav was
so-
dodging all her like punches and kicks with
I
like
think
one
Asav
hand.
had some like lessons he had to.
I think it takes more than some
Nathan
lessons.
Drake and Sam aren't born in they're born in America. They never had
They're
no
older,
listen.
that's
no, no,
why.
no, no,
Born in
Bruh.
America.
What does that have to do with anything?
No, that's not.
Jane, that's a little racist.
That's stupid, Jaden. That makes no sense.
You're so patriotic, Jaden.
Listen, well, you're not listening. You're not listening.
They were born in Canada.
They were
do better.
born. No, listen. They were born because a lot of Indian and I guess foreign, like apart from North American culture, really focus heavily on like using their bodies and combat to really, and it sometimes in many instances, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Many instances, sorry.
No,
In many instances, it heals them and it makes them think very distinct, it makes them think too as well. With Nathan Drake and Sam, they never had parents when they were, well, I guess they were
never
born
had
as-
parents.
They
Well,
never
they did. I
parents.
mean, everyone
They
has
did.
parents.
They did. They never had parents. Well, again with the remarks. Let me
Get to
finish.
that point, Jesus.
With Nate, well, I am. If just stop cutting me off. With Nathan with Nathan and Sam, they didn't have parents growing up. They didn't have maybe not even half of the education that other kids would have had gotten. For sure, they didn't get taught any form of combat. Everyone compares Nathan Drake to some fucking Superman just because he in gameplay he deals with. No, he's not. He's not.
Right.
We like you guys said, we know nothing about Nadine's background. We don't know what kind of combat she's gone through. So
She's a
Well, as a military leader, she
Mercenary,
definitely
so I
had
think that
some.
explains quite a bit.
have you seen this recent movie? I forget what the
No.
movie's called, but it was the guy from Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield. He didn't have no combat. He was in the military, well, not army. So
That is
stereotypical. Not everyone in the military has
Oh, do you
training.
mean Hacksaw Ridge?
Yeah, that one.
But Nadine must have training. She beats the crap out of Drake and Sam at the same time. Two guys who clearly have taken down.
Hundreds
Yeah,
of
but
men each
Drake
game.
in particular taking down much.
I do feel like they weren't trying to, in that scenario, like it's a woman. Like I feel like they wouldn't put much force into it as opposed to Lazarevich or something. You know what I mean? Because again, she's a woman.
So you're
and,
thinking that Nate is pulling punches just because Nadine's a woman?
yeah,
Bruh.
yeah, for sure.
Why?
Definitely.
Why would he do that?
Why would he do that? Okay, so it's either pull punches or die. So those are his two options.
yeah.
Sav didn't have a problem with beating women.
No, yeah, the like he's a mercenary.
Half the time, dude. Just grab him by the throat.
But Asav and Nathan Drake, although these are two fictional characters, they're two fucking different people. So that's just a dumb remark to bring up.
And one, we know has combat training.
One
We've
is a warlord.
experienced
One
him.
is a warlord, a psychopath, like Dan had mentioned. One that tried to win a war by blowing up innocent people. The one who put away his culture that he
Culture.
he grown into to only abandon it because of fucking extreme ideologies.
You mean the
That's
full
what
Canadian
was why I
culture?
like Song.
Hey, Jaden. The full Canadian culture?
So of course he would handle these women with no respect.
Dude, this is going down the drain.
I just
Oh, God.
I can't even believe that you
Pathetic
believe
comments
that Nathan
between,
Drake was pulling
hey,
punches.
how does Nadine? Whoa, Nadine's overpowered. it's a video game.
She
Enjoy it.
needs
Enjoy the
enough.
story. Stop over analyzing
Jaden,
because
it's
a woman
clear.
beat up two
It's
fucking men. It's fucking ridiculous.
Jeez, what are you
I
on, bro?
can't believe it when in Uncharted 3, Nathan Drake beats up all those super.
All those what?
The,
No,
the
Uncharted
big
3.
brute guys.
The baldy beef heads. That's what it is.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
big guys
Sure.
Landons.
that all fight the exact
Well,
same, and you have to kick
yeah,
them
but-
in the balls.
Okay, well that's a good. That's actually a good comparison. That's a good comparison between a very, very well done comparison between the two. One was slower. The brute guys, they were slower,
Bruh.
and they definitely aren't militants. Like they with Nadine, she like I said had training. She's more. She can dodge.
I don't even know what you're trying to
you know,
argue now. What are you trying to
kicks
argue?
well, whoever brought that up, the point how how Nadine, I don't get how she could got beat up from a Sov and
Well, Saul probably just got like he's like a badass, even more badass.
It's the Sav. He's the best Uncharted villain. Of course he's gonna
Oh
kick
yeah,
us.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
he's
just a
so
comment.
developed because he's
I
so
wasn't arguing
developed.
anything. I was just
Backstory.
saying my opinion.
Yeah. Well, okay, whatever. Honestly,
All right. Now that we got that out of the way.
is there anything
can go
else?
on to
Is there anything else
stuff.
we still need to talk about?
Um,
I don't know.
we didn't really
We're
talk
about
about the
to
train.
I feel like we still missed out on so much stuff though.
Like what?
I don't know. We talked about
Dude,
pacing
wait,
for
I have
like
a-
an
I have a
hour.
question for you guys. Did any of you guys think when you started the game and when Chloe was talking about her dad, did any of you guys think that she was gonna adopt a little girl at the end?
Oh no.
No, not at all.
Did everybody like think that the dad was already dead? Because I knew right from the
Yeah,
field.
oh,
I was
I
like,
knew
oh yeah,
that.
he's already dead. I'm like, what the?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always thought her dad was dead. Or either that or just
No.
like old or something.
No, right? No,
Wait,
because
wait,
I
wait.
knew, dude, right away. Like even when when we got the riverboat cinematic scene and she started talking about like her dad, the archaeologist. I already thought he was dead there. Like
Yeah.
so.
They should have started off where you play as her dad, and it'd be a set
he
piece
said
then.
like my dad was
then he dies.
all that, and obviously those are words that imply that he's no longer in the world and alive. I mean, it's not really guessing; it's just using excuse me, the writing to bring up your own conclusion. Not
right.
really guessing.
I think we had a question. We should probably answer this before we end off the thing. We got a question from Eric. And he was talking about what he thinks the best set piece, the best puzzle, and the best location. Now, puzzle, I'd probably say the shadow one for me.
Is that the
Either
best-
that or the axes. Those are really fun and
is that the
intuitive.
best puzzle in the whole game though? I feel I don't
think
know.
so.
I'm
Whole game.
I don't know if I could pick like one individual. I just feel like as a whole, the Lost Legacy has the best puzzles in this franchise.
Yeah, well, it
Was
just
it the
what do you
worst
think
implemented? I think, or the one of the worst.
You mean, like,
because
when-
they're not there.
You mean the way they were implemented into the story? You mean?
Yes, because in Uncharted 4, the actors' tests, it makes sense to
True.
exist.
Yeah,
in Uncharted
yeah, I
Lost
know- I
Legacy,
know
it's
what
like
you
the
mean.
game designers just put them there because
That's true.
okay, let's throw some puzzles in there. They're not there for any story.
Some
reason.
actually, some
Why
of them
were they
did
even
fit
there in the Western
story.
Ghats? Like, it felt kind of
That's my
stupid.
point. It's like a massive area. Let's throw the puzzle.
All of a
yeah.
sudden there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that led to the story. That led to where you needed to go, though. Like that one.
No,
piece.
but he means why would they be there in the first place? He means because he does make a
Because
point.
It's to unlock. It's to unlock the. One
Okay, but who
gate
put them there? Who
with
put
the
them there? Like,
person,
why are they there?
Why wouldn't they be?
Why would they? It makes no
There were
sense.
towers,
There's
There
a
were
lot of trouble
towers.
for nothing.
There were
Maybe
towers. There were. That was. I don't know if it was
I mean,
that
it's
part.
No, but
or-
who makes
whole
who makes a
game.
who makes a
How
fortress
the
just to
part-
leave it there for nothing and leave like a puzzle so someone could solve it in
No,
like
I'm
in
pretty-
400
I'm pretty
years?
sure they explained that with the whole war between the Persians and the Indians, I guess, or whatever.
I don't know, maybe I missed something. I just thought that was kind of weird.
But
I
I
don't
don't know. I don't know if that was the section as well as the part of Halibadu, like where Chloe said, "Oh, welcome to downtown."
Welcome to
Halibadu."
downtown Halibadu.
That was the part. That was the part where the war took place. But I'm pretty sure the outskirts of the Western Ghats were also the mix between. Did they mention why they built the structures? I believe. I'm pretty sure they did. In the game, you can always.
All right, well, we think we can all agree it's somewhere in Lost Legacy, maybe, for the best puzzles, maybe.
Definitely.
Hmm.
I'd say the shadow one. That's like, I love that one. That's fun.
Yeah, the shadow one was
puzzles,
fun.
but worst implemented. Because what's so good about the puzzles in Lost Legacy is how the stages. It's not just you don't just take a gameplay idea and then throw it away and do a new one.
Well, the same thing happened in Uncharted too. There was a lot of puzzles that really didn't do it much to the story.
Well, it's in all first three games. I think the puzzles are poor implemented, and the puzzles there are just not even that good. I think in Lost Legacy they're good because it has a mechanic and then it builds upon it in the next room. So like my favorite one is the axe swinging because it's simple, you know what to do, but it builds on it in 3 rooms. I think it's 3. In 3 rooms, and it always adds something every time. So it uses a mechanic and expands on it rather than just throwing it in and taking it back out again. But
Oh, so is
again,
that
the
what you
poorly
mean?
implemented
Is that what
into
you
the
mean,
story.
how it's in the game and a lot of it is similar? Because I don't see how that's such a problem though.
Which
It's more because like there's not much reason for them to actually exist. Like, yeah, cool, like it's there and it makes them probably the environment or just the area kind of seem more interesting, but there's not really any reason why they're actually there, unless they're trying to stop you from getting to like the, you know, like the end of it. But it's like, it's I think Blue, you said in your review that it's just like done to extend time kind of thing, and not
It is, yeah.
actually.
it's like a designer. It's like the first 3 games as well. The designers just throw them in there for the sake of extending time.
Wait, where were the puzzles in the first 3 that just extended time?
Well, in the first one, there was a load of absolute crap puzzles. Like there's one at the start of the game.
The one in the
where-
library, that was BS, where you're rotating the little statues.
Yeah, there's that, and then at the start of the game, there's one where you have to run up to. I think there's like 4 square. What are they? They're in the wall, like
Oh, like
square
the
tall
things they have to
things.
push into
Yeah,
the
you have to
wall,
push
right?
Push them in. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
crap like that. It's just
To open the thing under.
yeah. And then in 2, there's like the one where you have to climb the
There's the
daggers.
statue,
And then the dagger
there's the
goes into the
statue,
thing, and
Oh,
then it
that was
opens
cool.
them
I
up.
like that one. But that's a good thing to have them in there.
I think.
No, I
yeah.
think it's just massively extensive.
But you wish that wasn't in the game.
Yes, because it. No, well,
That's, like,
I
one of my
don't. I
favorite
don't want to
rooms.
say I
I
wish
love
it was
that
in winning the game. I wish it was better implemented into the story because there was a value puzzles to exist in 4.
Yeah.
There wasn't really in the first 3 games.
I see what you mean.
I feel like maybe the puzzle that in Uncharted 2, after you've gone through that, the one with the purple dagger and the big statue, and you go down all the way to the end, I feel like that one has a bit more reason or a bit more.
Yeah.
Because at least like they're trying. Because they're trying to hide the location of Shambhala, I think, aren't they?
Well,
And
that's
when
yeah,
it was
but they're trying to hide the location. But they're trying to hide the location. The only reason the puzzles are there, really, it's just
Yeah.
it's like the set pieces. They're just really there to connect the series of events. Like in 2, there's that one we have to pick up the triangle shapes and move them to the coloured
Oh my god.
thing with a tiger on, and then you
Yeah,
gotta spin the
yeah,
symbols.
yeah.
It's a decent puzzle. It's just shit because then you go out the thing, go and spin some wheel, and then that opens the door. It's like it just feels like it just poorly connects everything.
Alright.
Well, they were well
So what do you guys
implemented.
think- what is your
Like-
favorite set piece? That's what Eric also wanted to know.
Last
Favorite
one
set
the
in
last
Uncharted: The
one in
Lost
Lost
Legacy.
Legacy.
It
No,
was
I
like
mean,
I think
the
Brett. I
series.
think I think what Brandon you said basically sums it up. It's like Uncharted 4 Convoy and Uncharted 2
Yeah.
Train had a baby.
Yeah, exactly.
That
Well,
that's what I said it earlier. I
it's
said
so
it took
good
the
about
best parts of
Wars.
the previous games and combines it.
Yeah, and then added the rope mechanic as well.
Yeah.
The thing that's so good about it is
Four
this
train sequence?
mechanical.
I think I liked it too. It's not because of how epic it was, but it's the fact that you kept going. There was that moment where you had to change to this train station. You had to go to the radio tower. It
Yeah.
felt like just out of the movie. Like she jumps in the car and she drives off on her own.
Yeah.
It felt like such
Yeah,
a
that's
movie.
my favorite
It just
set
kept
piece as
going.
well.
It kept going, and it just kept lasting long. And like you
Yeah, I was
away from
yeah.
it, it
See,
just- it
because
told you-
Brandon, you asked me
Right.
how long was that part, and I said it was pretty extensively
Yeah.
long. Because like it's like and
crazy.
it's not
you
it's not
jump
just
into
like
a Jeep and you
continuous.
steer away from the train, and you got to go ahead. It's crazy how
Yeah.
epic and just.
I
it felt like
remember,
anything
you know
like
the part where you're in the station with Sam, right? And then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I gotta catch Nadine. It's like
Yeah.
when I jumped into the car and you're like chasing, and she's like, oh, how am I gonna
Yeah.
get on that train? And then I see
Yeah.
the train below me, and you see that
Yeah,
like
and
that
you just, like,
platform.
you
I'm
see the
like,
ledge, you're like,
oh,
fuck
this is
it.
gonna be so epic. And then I just
Right.
like drove
I
off.
think from a gameplay perspective as well, because in the first 3 games, I think there's only one. I think that Jeep segment and that last one in Lost Legacy are the best in the series because there's actually some gameplay choice in how you handle the situation. It's in the set pieces are just visually engaging. They're not mechanically. That's not really a problem, but it doesn't mean they're like the best things ever either. It's essentially glorified QuickTime events. Naughty Dog just did the boss job of hiding
What's
the
an
button
example
prompts.
of a set piece that's mechanically impressive or whatever
Because you
it is?
get to when
No,
you're
no,
on
no, like an example of a game that has a set piece because I have yet to see one.
the Crisis series. Have you ever played
God of
Crisis?
War has some good set pieces. I mean, on the
never.
boss battles.
I played
Yeah,
Crisis
that
2. I
got, like,
only
QTs
played
as well.
Crisis
Well,
2.
boss battle isn't a
It's
set
nice,
piece, but say it.
Crisis has some incredible set pieces. What's it
Oh.
called? In Uncharted, they're just glorified QuickTime events. Whereas in the Jeep segment and that last one in Lost Legacy, you have some choice. You can shoot off the tires of the car, jump to the car, jump from the train.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what you look
onto
for.
the back of it.
Yeah.
There's actually
sometimes it
a
is
choice. It's not just you being guided to the way Naughty Dog.
Yeah, as
exactly
opposed
what
to.
you're doing.
That's why I like the chapter 9 one, because there's so much options. Like you could stay on the train, and then
Yeah.
only certain parts that make you go to the
Yeah,
jeep. But,
you
like
know
you
the-
could literally, like on my second time playing it, I jumped in the jeep and I just drove ahead. Like instead
Yeah,
of
Yeah.
that's exactly what
in
I
the
did
train.
too. The first time I played it, I stayed on the train most of the time. Second time, I actually like jumped across to other cars and like tried to
Yeah.
drive
It
forward.
just literally, I took one of the jeeps and I just started driving way forward in the train.
Yeah.
It's just like so much choice in like the level design, and it's not even randomized because there's like treasures and everything. It's all like built like a regular level would be.
It's literally the reason why before
so,
Lost Legacy I preferred Uncharted 4's car chase, because I just think it gives you like, you just have the choice of, do you want to drive there? Do you want to, and I think it definitely gives you a lot more. Not only do you choose how you play, but you
I
actually
still
play
think
it.
I like the
kind of thing.
Uncharted 2 train sequence better than the jeep one, but I don't know.
I guess with that one, at least you
I
have to play it.
the scenery. Like I didn't really like the scenery and everything. I liked how the Uncharted 2 train sequence, like the scenery around and everything, and you fight the helicopter on top of it. It was really cool.
Are we wrapping off the podcast now?
I want to talk about one more thing. How did you guys like the boss battle with Asav?
Oh, it's so
I
bad.
felt it was really good, and I really
It
liked
was
it.
essentially just the fight from Uncharted 4. I mean,
I liked
think
it.
it was
I
a
thought
mix
it
of
was satisfying and
How?
realistic.
It's
There was
kinda-
swords. There was Wraith and
because you're just
Wraith is
dodging.
white.
Yeah.
And
Asab's
it was-
brown.
It was
In
like
fact,
a
what's
mix.
even
American,
worse is
one's
you only get
Indian.
one dodge button.
Yo,
At
we all
least in
talk at
Uncharted
one
4, you
time.
could dodge left and right.
I honestly thought it was kind of
liked
sloppy.
I liked it because like I felt like how else would you really fight him, you know?
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't mind it, but just like as
And
a
it felt
boss fight, it's
satisfying.
like
Like
not.
holy hell! Like just
Something that I
punching
wish the
him.
Lost Legacy had was a fucking supernatural element to it.
Why? I
Like
didn't need it.
Uncharted 4 and the Lost Legacy would have been perfect to have, because we were dealing with a religious.
Well, what would you like to
belief,
add it?
like a
Where would you
Hindu-
like to add it in
Hindu
the
gods
story?
and stuff.
Flying elephants, that's what it should have been.
Flying elephants.
No, let's be real. But like,
Now one of the
yeah,
gods is
for
still
sure.
alive.
Let's be real, but introduce a supernatural element to it.
Let's be
It's
real.
like-
Let's add some mystical elements to it.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would have been would fit.
No, but where would you
yeah,
put
I
it
think
in though? Where would you put it in
The
the
statue
story?
that you see, it comes to life and it stands on a
To back up, Jaden,
So
I
we're
don't
gonna
know
ask
that.
that.
in general, I'm talking about in general, adding a super element to the game would have been cool to see, in my opinion.
Yeah. I felt like it fit in 2 and 3 because like the whole thing with the water, how it turned them all like how it like made them insane and it killed
I
that
felt
city. I
2
felt
was
that
pretty
that
forced.
worked.
Still, but that doesn't explain the teleporting there, though. Like, how the fuck? I
Yeah,
don't
but
get
I mean,
that.
it felt more than it would in here. Is what I'm trying to say. Like it felt like they could have gone like they could have done it better. What I'm saying,
I
but
don't
they
know,
had a
Lost-
good starting round on it.
Lost Legacy, I think it would have lent itself to having a supernatural twist, just because they're dealing with gods and all this stuff
Really?
like that. I don't know.
That is true.
I
That is
just
true
thought I
compared
didn't
to like
need
something like Henry Avery, where it's all grounded and everything.
Well, yeah, Henry Avery wouldn't make any sense. Like, what would they have?
Yeah, exactly. Like what
Pirates
happened?
of the Caribbean 2, like dead
Yeah,
pirates.
exploding
walking around.
mummies.
Well, I mean, it comes to time as well. Like they only had a year, so.
Yeah,
But, yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it would be cool to have that.
I also wanted to know, besides the boss battle, do you guys really want any more Uncharted after this, or because I'm kind of full of Uncharted. Like I'm ready for
maybe
Last
one
of Us Part 2.
but, I
I
don't
didn't
know.
want this, but I don't.
Yeah, I was. Me and Justin were really that excited. I know that, but I was happy it happened. Like I'm glad it happened, and I'm.
It's just that we're obviously going to see Uncharted again because of the way 4 ended in like 10 years or something. But what I'm annoyed about this existing is this isn't the best Uncharted, whereas I thought 4 was, and I thought it ended on a highest peak, and I think that ending's the best moment in the series.
But this is different. This is not really a part of Uncharted.
but that's
series.
not-
I know
That's
it's
like main
standalone, but there's
legacy.
clear
Yeah, no, but-
references. Nadine even talks about how she loses like shit in Uncharted 4, how she hates that.
But that's just all psychological, how you choose to believe it. Like you could look at Uncharted 4 as the end. This is just DLC on top of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I would kind of consider Lost Legacy kind of like Uncharted 4 Part 2 to an extent, because it brings
Yeah,
back
me
in
too.
Sam. If it was just Chloe and Nadine, I think I would less feel that.
Yeah, but it's
they're
more
bringing
like
Sam,
existing in the same universe and stuff.
It is.
Yeah, no,
Not
it is.
really though, because it takes
Again,
place after the
mentions
main
in
story. If you
Orca,
talk
the
about the main
whole
story in
thing
4.
Orca, the whole mentions about Shoreline and the Drake brothers, like it was literally, it's the same. It's like Josh said, it's like Mature 4.2 or whatever. So
4.2.
yeah, I think.
Oh, we got
Didn't
aim
even
on
get to
points.
4.5.
But my thing is this, I don't think this is the best Uncharted game. So, like, for me, if this is the way the series is going to end for the next 10 years, I don't want that. But I also don't want another Uncharted game. So I'm
I'm
kind of
ready
like,
for Last of Us Part 2. That's what's.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'd rather have that.
Like to me, I'm done with Uncharted. Like I love the whole Nate legacy of the first four games. And just I see Nate's legacy kind of like the first 3 games, and then I see like his final chapter, like the epilogue to like the final 3, like his prime days as in 4, and then just this standalone thing. Like I wouldn't mind them building upon it like later on, but like as for now, I think like I still think Uncharted like their best universe they've ever established. Like this sealed the deal. Like the universe just feels like alive, and like you feel like these characters are living while Nate's at home with Elena. Like it's obviously their best established universe, but I feel like Last of Us just isn't explored as much yet, and I'm just super excited for part 2, and I'm just really hope they focus on that now.
Yeah,
I mean,
me
it's
too.
clear that they love Uncharted, so they're probably going to come back to it at some point because they just seem to love the developing.
I will say that before the Chloe and Nadine, before like Lost Legacy was announced, I did want the Sam and Sully story, but I don't know now if I still want it because I'd still be interested in it. But bringing Sam back just feels again like I mean, I feel like Sam was an easier character because Troy Baker's probably already at Naughty Dog because of Last of
Troy
Us
Baker's going to be every single game from now on.
Yeah. But no, I feel like just bringing him in again, especially as like a main character, I think his inclusion in Lost Legacy was cool. Maybe not the best executed in the grand scheme of things, but I think bringing him back for his own game I don't think I'd want it because I mean I'd be interested in it, but
yeah.
I never really wanted a Sully and Sam thing. Like I never really cared to see that. If I'm being honest,
I just felt like they would work.
I was
well
more interested in
together.
Nadine and Chloe because I felt like they needed to be established more.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
I didn't mind Sam joining it. I had some problems with how he was like how his dialogue was all funny and everything, but
really.
I wish it was.
I think it
he
was.
was weirdly.
So-
it
it
didn't seem like he was the same character from 4.
Yeah, it does seem
Because I just recently played 4. That's why I noticed it. Like
He
I
did
really
act a
played
bit
4 the week
differently.
before
He
this
acted a
game
bit
came out, and it felt
differently.
like a different character in a way.
To me, he felt like he was a wannabe Nathan Drake. I know he's kind of that in 4, but he's not really as well because Nate's clearly wiser. Whereas in this one, it felt like this is how Nate was in the first 3 games. That's how Sam felt. He's always quick-witted. He wants the treasure. Even at the end of the game, when they get the treasure, he's like, "What's the next adventure then?" Because he still wants more of it. He felt like,
Wait, you guys are serious?
Yeah.
Is that what happens in Uncharted 1? Like, Nate brings up a line about what's going to happen for our next adventure or something?
nobody goes on another adventure clearly willing. He doesn't have that exact line, but he clearly wants another adventure because he's not against it in 2. Whereas another thing, Elena is, which makes no sense because in the first game, he's the one saying to quit and she's the one saying to go forward. And then in 2 and 3, it's the other way around, which makes like 0 sense.
I agree with you.
It's because of that death of it's the death of Jeff and Carl Schaefer.
I think there's a little bit of sense just because he's had the ring for in Sir Francis is the part of his life that like I just imagine like a turn that he'd be obsessive over compared to
You're
other
cutting out.
things.
I can barely hear you.
I can't really hear you either. You're cutting out a bit.
Oh, there you go. Wait,
Now you're
talk.
fine.
Oh no, I was just saying like
There you
I
go.
agree with Blue that like the change between Nate's character in Uncharted 1 in comparison to Uncharted 2 and 3 doesn't make too much sense. But I think to sort of justify that in Uncharted 3, it makes a little bit of sense just because Nathan Drake is like going after, the legacy of Sir Francis Drake, and because that it's more personal to him, more so than something that like Marco Polo would be. So I sort of understand why he'd be like more obsessive for that than he would be for a different adventure.
That is something with 3 and 4 that I liked how it kind of like related back to something he looked at when he was a kid, and like he's finally getting there now.
So there was context to his actions. I wasn't talking about Drake. I was talking about because in the first game she's the one willing him on, and then in the second and third she's like, "Why are you still doing this?"
Yeah, it's the death of Jeff.
It's the
Struck us all.
shock.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Yep, looks like that was everything. So we basically,
was.
how long have we been talking for? Like 2 hours?
2 hours over
2.5
hours.
hours.
Jesus
or something
Christ!
like that.
Holy, the longest episode of Gaming at its Core.
I thought that was the last one. It's good topic.
Yeah, this one's even longer now. Holy.
The largest ever.
We've never had anything above 2 hours, but yeah. To end it, to everybody still watching, of course, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Gaming at its Core, our Uncharted: The Lost Legacy epic discussion with as many people as we could possibly get, of course. We had like 9 people in the end with Jaden.
Rotating guests.
So, yeah, that was nice to see. And I guess we'll see if we can get them back. So, Blue, it was
And
nice having you
thanks
back,
to,
of course.
Crash. Yeah.
And Dan was here,
thanks
but
to
Dan
Crash
left. But yeah,
Gaming for joining.
yeah, Crash
Yeah.
Gaming and
Come on.
Robin.
Thanks,
So-
Eric, for the question. as
Yeah,
well.
thanks Eric for the question. So yeah,
Although
with
we
that being
didn't
said,
answer his final one, but yeah.
what was this?
just end it.
Okay, we're not. Whatever.
What was
Yeah.
his final one?
Oh my god.
Yeah, just best location in the series, but yeah. Also,
Uncharted
my
4.
quick one, maybe Nepal or something. I don't know.
No, Nepal was cool, but Uncharted 4 for me.
Wait, Uncharted 4 is in terms of like a location.
You just mean
Wait,
the whole
what?
Libertalia?
Oh, like,
5
oh,
locations.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, Libertalia.
I think Blue would say Libertalia too. I don't know.
Yep, Libertalia by a mile.
Think
By an
Libertalia.
absolute mile.
That as well.
Yeah. All right.
I said
whatever.
Nepal slash
Hey,
Libertalia.
maybe the market at the beginning of Lost Legacy. I feel like that was.
Well established, you really felt like you didn't want it to get bombed.
Spent 5 minutes there and I couldn't wait to leave.
The little girl should have died in this one. That was amazing.
Jesus, if she had died,
She got blown up by the
exactly like
bomb.
Last of Us.
You're ruining the
She
moment.
should have got shot by the guy. She ran up to him.
All right, Justin ended.
All right. Anyways,
Last of Us.
for everybody still watching, thanks a lot. We hope to see you next week on Gaming at Score. Thank you. Goodbye.
See ya.
So, yeah.
Bye.
See ya.